Okay, so welcome to the wonderful world, guys. And we are doing a special membership training. That means that this is more intensive. We're going deep as if you are fully in a training group. So the first thing that you need to do is just nod if you can see the screen of the workbook that I'm going to be sharing with you. Yes, everyone can see that. Let me just make sure that I'm sharing the screen first so I can give the nod. That might help, Terry. All right, so I'll wait for the nod and then yes. Beautiful. Okay, so welcome to the world of NLP hypnosis, where you can make change to anything in your life. I mean, this is incredible, you guys. And of course, we want to be able to pause and go to the group so we can do some intense training. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be training you not only conversational NLP with powerful techniques so that you've got something that completely can change the trajectory of your life, but I'm going to give you some skills on hypnotic language and how that can make it 10 times even more powerful. Okay. So what I'll do is we'll go through the groundwork because I think this is really, really important. And then we're going to go over to sharing and talking with the members. So it's the model of human excellence. It is created by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. They modeled because we're talking about being able to channel human excellence, right? So if you want to call in to be a great athlete, you would look at the industry you want to be a great athlete in and channel that person who is absolutely, badass. So they channeled the people such as Virginia Satir, because she is a famous and very successful family therapist, but they also channeled Sigmund Freud for the reasons on the psychology. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to discover what happened at the level of when change did occur. They didn't wait for 15 years, 2 years, 2 months. They looked at the human brain. So what you guys are going to be learning today and practicing is the most important technique of all. This is the one that would pass you in NLP if you didn't learn another thing. So I know that sounds a little bit dodge, but it is a very important tool, and you do require to be able to ask the right questions in order to do that, which by default is another really important piece. So anchoring is the demonstration of really getting into your muscles and in your cells, the feelings that you want. It's also about knowing what you don't want. So when you're looking at what you do want, I want you to think about this today. I want you to think in terms of, let's bring to the table something that you can transform. And so these anchoring tools will not only give you the power to help anchor these incredible, powerful elements, but it's also going to give you the magic of rapporting with the person, because who doesn't want to feel good? I mean, whether you were a therapist, a teacher, a parent, right? Or even a guy who once asked me, can I have some pickup skills to help me pick up the right girl? And this actually does work for that. And if you look at some of the comedians like Darren Brown and that, they do it and they use the sleight of mouth. So when you're, building rapport, you're obviously, what you're doing is you're getting inside the state. So let's just say, let's set up 3 of the most important states. So I'm going to ask you the question, and I want you to think about this. I want you to remember a time when you felt incredible love and connection. This could be a moment with a child, a grandparent, a friend, a lover. It doesn't have to be anything current, but it was a real moment of love and connection. Now, I want you to think about that. Now, as you think about that, what I want you to do, this is what you do. You help yourself and your client to literally process this through 3 of the most important elements of the brain. What did you see in that moment of love and connection? You know, if you were holding a child, holding a baby, or perhaps embracing a loved one, what was around you? What did it look like? And even if you can't remember exactly, not everyone has that vivid visual imagination, and that's perfectly okay. I want you to create it. So this is really important. Now that you've said that, so you need to see it, the next part, which is submodalities, guys. This is called submodalities. You've got the vision. I want you to get hold of the sound. What did you hear? What were the sounds going on in that moment? And then finally, the internal representation of associating and disassociating. So even though I'm asking you to remember this, I want you to now associate. Now, associating and disassociating is a very powerful concept when you know how to utilize it, because it means that you can step in and out of anything, including a bad thought or a bad situation. Because when you can step out of it and look at it from, you know, a distance, that's when it gives you more clarity and you can control your emotions, becoming more stoic. So now that you have understood submodalities is color, sound, vibration, see what you see, hear what you hear, and now what I want you to do is I want you to step into it. So step into it and literally feel the association of that moment. Now you're going to set up an anchor, and this is going to be a very important piece that you are learning in this today. And I want you to set that anchor up by firstly really associating inside that memory, bringing up what you see, what you hear, what you feel. And then I want you to squeeze it into your right hand, making a fist. Squeeze that in and let it make this sound like, because what you're doing is you're setting up an anchor and you're creating this beautiful feeling, bringing back the memory of what you see, what you hear, and what you feel. Now, what we're going to do is get you back to meta. Now, the meta situation is just where you are back to now, here and now. So that's how you anchor someone. Now, in order to really, really amplify it, what we do is we then create 2 other memories. So it's interesting that in our group, just about everyone here wants to be able to serve people. And this is where the niche and the elements of everything start to come together. So we've got someone who's struggling with alcoholism, and really it's not about the alcohol, but it's about the reason that that person's doing that. So in our group here, we had one of our members asking the what question. And of course, it just started out that there was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of elements that were fear-based, that, you know, were telling him he's not good enough. The member that was facilitating also held, although her manifestation is different, but she held fears that she wouldn't be able to do it either. She had a lot of self-doubt about whether she could be, you know, the master that she wants to be. And then as a result, what's happening for her, if she's obstructed by health issues. So this is the part where we are learning how to understand, number one, what it is that the person wants, and number two, what is really holding them back. And by asking the what questions, what is holding you back, you'll usually get a superficial answer. Then you ask again, well, what is it about that fear? Because fear is only generalized. So, oh, well, it's the fear of not being good enough. That's when you're really getting deep. And then you go down even deeper and you find out that there's a manifestation. So that becomes a behavior. So once you hit the thing that's holding them back, followed by the negative emotion, and then the behavior, you've pretty much nailed it. Now, what happens if you haven't been able to ascertain the emotion, and the behavior? Just keep on watching them. What does that mean? What do you feel? What kind of fear? What kind of situation? Just keep asking them what until they'll spill their beans and say, this is what happens, right? And then you know you've struck gold. So the next part now that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the second anchoring. So the second anchoring is going to be on your feeling of importance and significance. So I'm going to get you to bring up a big screen in your mind's eye, and I'm going to get you to go back into a moment where you felt kind of really cool, like really important, quite significant. Maybe you won something. Maybe it was in school. You may have won a sports carnival, or you may have, achieved something where people kind of went, wow, that's really, really cool. So I want you to just understand that what we're looking for, because this is like a recipe, you're making a recipe. And you can't go wrong when you base the recipe on the human needs. And our member here will understand this because Tony Robbins teaches on this. So the human needs, not in this order: love, connection, significance and importance, and followed by certainty and confidence. Those are the three main ones. There's actually 6 altogether. We're going to stick with that for time permittance. So, okay, see on the screen you in a space where you just felt really good, significant, important, you felt appreciated, all that jazz. Now remember to go through the submodalities. So what did you see in that moment, even if you're just creating that? What did you hear, even if you're just creating that? And then I want you to now float into it. Now, guys, I want you to learn how to utilize these submodality questions, and that's what we're going to go to in our membership training in just a moment. So you're going to be asking firstly, I want you to recall a time when you felt significant and importance. Get them to see what they're seeing, hear what they're hearing, and feel what they're feeling. What did you see? What did you hear? Now, when it comes to the feeling part, associate them into it. Ask them to float in. So float into that moment now of where you were when you were feeling that significance and importance. And just feel it in every cell of your body. Then anchor it. Right hand, anchor. Boom. So as you anchor that in, make sure you get it into your body, make sure you're associated in there, seeing what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, feeling what you're feeling. And now I want you to step out back into metta, take a breath, and we're going to hand over to our members training. So what we've just trained is that we've now covered anchoring the state of love and connection, anchoring the state of the feeling of importance and significance, and really getting the person into that state. We've also asked them to do some homework, and the homework is around speaking in that slower voice. being able to really say what you say with great meaning. So go ahead and find that moment. Go ahead and float into that feeling of importance. See what you see, hear what you hear, feel it, and anchor it. So you're anchoring that in the right hand. And then you're floating them back because you want to bring them back to here and now, right? Now, there's just one more. And this one is about a moment of certainty and confidence. Now, this is what a lot of people require anyway in order to show up with stellar confidence, right, you guys? And just literally have all of those beautiful feelings that are just literally going around in your body. And so confidence is just such an exquisite one. So are we ready? Let's go ahead. So if you are going to become exquisite, if you are going to become so good, you know that you want to achieve what it is that you want to achieve, to serve the world. We have built on the anchors of love and connection and importance and significance. And now I want you to remember, because imagine having stellar confidence where you can easily and effortlessly have an anchor to show up with that confidence. I want you now to imagine that you are recalling a moment where you had confidence. It doesn't have to be recent. It could even be back to your teenage days. It could be where you were standing holding a trophy, where you had just made the decision to buy something of relevance, a house, a car, but you felt really strong. You felt really powerfully confident. And then what I want you to do is I want you to float up into that beautiful, beautiful feeling. And I want you to look through your eyes, see what you see, hear what you hear, feel what you feel, and then come out. And as you come out, I want you to look, but now I forgot. So I made a mistake. So what I'm going to teach you what to do when you make a mistake. So my mistake is I forgot to anchor you. So let's float back in. I don't have to tell you that. I'm only telling you that as a teacher. So you know that you can't make a mistake actually. So float them back in. It's got to be even better. So as you float back in, see what you see in your confidence. Hear what you hear. Feel what you feel. Now anchor that in, amplifying it. And because we didn't anchor it the first time, it's going to ignite. So squeeze it in, squeeze it in, squeeze it in, and feel that exploding through every cell of your body. Okay, guys, so now you have got your positive element. You know what you want. You know what your client wants. You've anchored it in. Now we're going to do the killjoy stuff. What is it that's really holding you back? Now, this is on the other side. And this is where as you learn neuro-linguistic programming, this is what you're going to know, that everything is about the positive, the negative, where the person wants to be, where they are right now. So what you're doing by ascertaining and bringing in what their desires are and then looking at what their limitations are, there's a gap, right? So you're building the bridge to help your client with that fear, with that addiction, whatever the sabotaging pattern is. And you are actually helping them to get across to the other side, to nirvana, to being confident, to standing in their power, to showing up with all of that confidence and that wonderful certainty. And so now, speaking of certainty, what we're going to do is we are going to allow you to understand that certainty and confidence, love and connection and importance are really good recipes. So the next part is you've understood that visual, audible and kinesthetic, what you see, what you hear and what you feel. So that is the most important thing you've just learned. So setting up the anchor can be done. If you are doing this with a client, you can actually, tap them on their knuckle. If you're sitting in front of them, on their knee, or on their shoulder is even less, intrusive. But what you've got to remember is the right side always represents the positive, and just have that really locked in affirmatively, and that way you won't, you'll always have it. And the left is the negative. So this is what we call firing off anchors. So when we're firing off anchors and collapsing the triggers, what we're doing is we're going, like according to our members here in the group, you desire to help people to be out in the world, make your mark. But then on the other side, you're riddled in self-doubt, you fear that you're not good enough, and this is what's happening. So what you have to do is also get them to acknowledge that state. They've got to be with that state so they can literally become aware of it. So this is where I'm now going to ask you the same kind of questions. So it comes down to this: when X, Y, and Z happens, this, and this occurs, and then the behavior. So when I think about becoming a successful coach, fear steps in because this is what's happening, and I feel like I'm not good enough. And then I find that things in my life, I turn back to alcohol, or I find myself doing that anyway, or I find that my health goes down the drain, or I become exhausted, or whatever it is. So on this side, I want you to, really ascertain the left side. And I want you to see yourself on the screen now. So painting a movie screen of you in your negative state, a typical negative state. Maybe you did do the addiction after, or, specifically at a time when you were really suffering at that low self-esteem. Maybe you did feel the exhaustion or the procrastination or all of those elements, when, you were in this situation and then your health went, pear-shaped. Look at it and see yourself. Where are you? What's happening? I want you to then float into it. As you float into it, I want you to squeeze your left hand. So notice that as you squeeze your left hand, you can easily and effortlessly understand that you're in this environment, you know what happens with your behaviors, but I want you to also understand that the capabilities that even you have in other parts of your life are not working right here. So it's almost like you're not feeling like you're capable. Now you have an identity, but you have an identity in this specific philosophy as well. So even though you might have an identity of yourself when you are really in a space and a place of the work or what you do, or whatever it is that you're good at, you have a different identity over here when you're doing the fear, when you're doing all of those elements. So see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel what you feel. And anchor the left so that you can really anchor that in. Now what I want you to do is I want you to float on back. Now what you really need to do is you need to learn how to cleanse, clear, release, all of those things. But what we're going to do to make sure that you're sharp on this is we're going to go into the members training, and I'm going to get you to elicit their emotional state. You don't have to use exactly my words. You just need to know why you're doing it, what the reason is. So the reason you're doing it is to get them aware. So okay, so I want you to imagine now that you're in a situation, you know, and just ask them, where are you? What are you doing? What are you feeling? They already know what they're believing and their story is, and then get them to step into it. Get them to anchor it, hear what you hear, see what you see, feel what you feel. So we're going to go over to the members training. So as you now get the client to recall the negative state, you ask them to recall the specific experience that obviously evokes the negative emotional state and what they want to change. You associate them into it. So you're getting them to float into it. You're getting them to go into that whole situation. So your job is not to know what the correct language is. Your job is to know the reason you're doing this, and that is to make them aware. So seeing, hearing, and feeling, so that they can become very aware of their situation. Because believe me, that is, you are halfway home with your client by doing that. So don't get caught up on language, because I know that that's what members are doing, but get really focused on the fact that you're doing this to make them aware of what their negative state is. And once you can then anchor the negative state, right? You know, make sure that that is really in them so they understand. Float them out. So make sure you then float them out. Okay, so now you're identifying the positive state. You know what that is. You've got that on the right-hand side, and you're just really getting them to squeeze that into the right hand. You know that that's what you've done. This is how you are going to collapse the anchor. So have the client alternate between the negative and positive anchors, knowing that the left is the negative, the right is the other. This overlap will help the brain associate the negative state with the positive. But what you want to do is you want to fire off. This is the part where you want to fire off those two anchors at the same time. So ask the client to think about the original negative state, get him to, or her, to close the fist that they've anchored themselves. Got it? Now, once you've done that, you are then going to get them to close their right fist at the same time. And then as they close the right fist, they're going to let go of the left. Now, all as you have to know is that this is how it works. They're going into that left side where it's negative. They've got the setup on the right. They close the right, so they're both closed at the same time, and then they let go of the left. Got that? Okay, let's go over to the members training. Well, my member here facilitated that like a real legend. So basically, as we conclude this first training, which is going to be the groundwork for the most important elements that you learn in neuro-linguistic programming, what we just did was, because we've already set up, remember, we've set up their states, we know what they want, we've associated them with all of those powerful things. We know what they don't want, and we've got them to acknowledge that. So what our member just did as they facilitated is then you don't need to step your client in and out of there anymore, because it's all set up. It's easy. Now you've made life easy. So I want you now to go into that old negative state, and you're getting them to clench the left. And at the same time, you're clenching the right. And we got a lot of animation from our facilitator and letting go. And then breaking, breathing, and let's go again. Left, the negative, right, and then releasing. And then let's go again. Left, acknowledging the old way that you used to be. and right, letting it go. Excellent. Very, very good. So in our next training, we're going to teach you a little bit of hypnotic wording to really solidify all of this.
Okay.
We just had a doozy of a question by a member, and it's a really, really, really valuable, important one. So I want to teach on it while we're here and now. Because state anchoring, if you are with another person, and I mentioned that you can utilize the knuckle, the knee, or the shoulder. So just to let you know, okay, let's just say usually when we're in a session, I'm kind of sitting like this and I'm talking to you because I'm not kind of being confronting or anything like that. I'm building rapport. I'm getting to know you. I'm asking all the what questions. What is it that you want? I'm being very natural about it. You know how to ask a person what they want. Now, at the point when you have set them up with all of the elements, you've got them to go into the states, the positive of what they want, and eliciting the three, connections. Then you've done the left side. This is where the rubber hits the road. So if you're doing it online, you could ask them to do it themselves, like what I've just taught you, or you can stand behind them and ask them to stand, which is what happened to me in my class. So I was standing, my teacher was behind me, and he would then just tap me on the left shoulder, and then he would do the right. He would tap me on the left shoulder and then do it on the right. And I still have that trigger and that fire off of anchor when I'm doing that, because that was my first experience. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to do this with a client, you're really getting into the nitty gritties. This is where the rubber hits the road. So then what you say is, okay, so we can utilize, I'm going to fire off some anchors and collapse the triggers that are in you. Now, you can either do this, I can do this by actually with your shoulders, standing up. And so I'll just do this with your shoulders if you like, or if you're happy, and then watch me. I turn around and I face them front on. And I say to them, right, put your hands out on your knee. And is it okay if I can just tap your knuckle? Do you see what I'm saying? But asking the question there, not at the beginning of the session, you might scare them. By this stage, you've got rapport. So you're asking them, is that okay? Put your hands right forward. And then the knuckle is a very safe one. I would go with that. If it's same sex, you could then say, or just someone that you feel more comfortable with, or that there's no kind of barrier. That's probably the better word I should use. Then say, do you mind if I just tap you on the knee? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap you on the knee here, just even with like a finger, boom, and then boom, right? Or having the knuckle. So that is the way that we would do that. But you can also do this on their arm, and you can stand in front of them and do this on their arm. So they are the ways that we utilize the anchor.